So Launchpad has resources for you to do your user-inspired research planning. So I want to start by giving you a little overview of UIR and an introduction to the modules that we have. I'll cover four topics. Why do we have user-inspired research? How do we balance the science versus the user values? Who are the users? And what learning modules do we have in the Launchpad? So the question is, why do we have use-inspired research? Well, Donald Stokes in 1997 came up with what he called the four-quadrant model. And that was based on whether the research was meant to be just for pure discovery or whether it was going to be, whether the use was going to be considered. And so, for example, Niels Bohr was pure research, discovery, no consideration of how it would be used. Thomas Edison, the exact opposite. But the Pasteur quadrant is the one that's interesting. He was undertaking basic research, but he had a specific use in mind. So I want to give you just a very quick bit of history. First of all, the NIH in the 1990s came up with this idea of translational research. In the early 2000s, the NSF came up with this idea of convergence. And the CHIPS Act, most recently in 2022, created a large fund, $280 billion, to fund research focused on domestic competitiveness, innovation, and national security. Now, these were already things that were part of what was considered your broader impacts. But the Act also authorized the creation of the NSF TIPS Directorate to elevate these things to a high level. And so in the last couple of years, we've seen things like the convergence accelerators and the regional engines, and the TIP Directorate is going to be promulgating these. So from the standpoint of someone that is trying to write proposals, it's very important that you be sensitive to this and that you try to engage with best practice. So the first question that you're going to face is, how do you balance the scientific values and the user values? So there's a very interesting PDF, a typology for assessing this. And you see that there's various activities, 3 activities. Each activity has several attributes. And each of those attributes may be more relevant for the scientist or more relevant for the user. And in the article, they give 2 examples, and you could just see that depending on what the project is, some projects may be highly dependent on user values, some may be balanced, and actually some may be focused much more on the scientific value. So you've got to decide what is most relevant to you. So based on that, who are the users? So this idea of an innovation ecosystem was developed. There's a conceptual review of this concept also in the PDF file in the module. And the model is that the ecosystem has an institutional environment within which sit the actors and the activities that they do and the artifacts that they create and use. And then you've got a series of potential actors. Research community, private enterprise, education and training, government, civil society, and practitioners. So based on the profile that you have in the values balance, you will select actors that are most relevant. So we have a series of learning modules in the Launchpad. We've started with 5 and we'll expand those. This is the overview. There's one with tips on recruiting in which we go through all of these actors in great detail and talk about how do you find the right ones. Then we will have a module on the UIR experience in K-12 and the community college connections, another on engaging with the private sector, and then a case study of UIR at a primarily undergraduate institution. Over time, we'll add more. We're going to invite people from other working groups to add modules that deal with their issues. And if you would like to suggest something, then please just drop us an email.